Is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast Podcast. Coming off a good weekend for me. Got to see a Knicks game winner out there in, Miami Arena. And then got to watch my Hurricanes cut down the net. Griffin, big Suns win just after this.
Big Suns win. I'm
KD,
so
39?
37, book 36. It feels good. I don't like Luka. I'm out on Luka as a likable player. Fuck Luka, bruh. I don't fuck with him. I'm out.
But hey, we're going to be talking about some guys that aren't even in the league yet. Griffin and I are going to be spearheading this NBA draft stuff. We were really big on it last summer. And we're going to start a little bit earlier now because there's a lot of people to talk about. And the consensus has been, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts where people were thinking that this is kind of a top 2 draft and then it drops off after that. I completely disagree. I think there's plenty of guys with high ceilings. They say that about every draft. They're like, it's like they'll say, it's not this, not that. But like, look around and a lot of those drafts pan out to be some of the best ones we've seen so far.
Yeah, I also think this one in particular, I think the reason they're saying that is just because the top 2 prospects are so good that maybe they're just devaluing the rest of the class. But I think this class is super deep. And yeah, we've kind of been, on Coast to Coast, the premier draft coverage team. We did it the past couple of drafts. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it this time.
Yeah, so we're going to start with the top 3. I mean, I think without even mentioning, we all know who 1 and 2 are going to be. Kind of the consensus opinion. And number 3 has been through some stuff as of the last couple days. I think we all know who that talking about. But I think we got to start at the top. Griffin's been high on this guy ever since his name has been made public. This Victor Wembanyama, the player from France, center, plays for Mets in 92. He's a guy like none other. So, Griffin, I'll let you take it away with what you've seen from him so far.
Yeah, it's just like generational prospect. We've heard a lot about him ever since. Really, I think his breakout performance was that U19 game against the USA, where he kind of destroyed Chet Holmgren, and that was before Chet even went to college. So he's been kind of a long-term prospect that I've been looking at for a while, for a couple of years now, ever since probably it was around maybe the 2020 draft. He's been kind of a name floating around like, wait for Victor. But really generational prospect. Liam was texting me about, doing this podcast, and we were talking about player comps and stuff. And the best one that I've seen, and I didn't want to steal it, but I'll mention it here, is Gen Z Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I genuinely believe that, growing up, learning the game in a modern day NBA environment where, guys are shooting the 3 and able to dribble at that size, but also, with the prowess and potential of someone like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who in my opinion is the 3rd best player of all time. Like, I am through the roof on this guy with his ability and potential in the league. And really the only thing, and I think Liam will probably agree with this, that could derail him in the NBA is injuries. So, we're just hoping for an injury-free player here, hopefully. Yeah. But yeah, I'm super high on Victor.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. We're talking about, guys that Victor Wembanyama, may compare to. I think when it comes down to it, I think the best mode is to kind of compare shades of players, because this isn't a guy that you have a straight up comp for. I mean,
yeah, you've never seen this guy before.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
Predating us. I mean, we've heard the Kareem one. I've heard Ralph Sampson a couple times. I can't say enough about Ralph Sampson because I haven't seen enough of his game.
Agreed.
But let's kind of look at some more modern examples. I think the first one that jumps off the page got to be Bol Bol. I mean, it's kind of an elite version of him in terms of the prospect line. Sure, Bol was highly recruited, ended up going to Oregon, had some injury concerns and so forth. But that's a guy who can shoot the ball, he can handle the ball, he can play defense, but, isn't as polished as Victor. Who are some other guys that, come to mind?
Just staying on Bol for a second, you've kind of seen, even though we think Victor has like way bigger potential than someone like Bol has, we've seen he's kind of had a breakout year with the Orlando Magic, and kind of seeing what that might look like in an NBA offense. It has been like with the Magic, I think should give teams some hope with how Victor will translate. But yeah, we also came up with guys like Kristaps Porzingis coming over from Europe. Also injury concerns, but also, able to shoot the three shoot from anywhere basically on the court, handle the ball a little, play some great defense, interior defense as well. And you also mentioned Giannis Antetokounmpo. Go into that more.
Yeah, I think especially from the defensive side, because, Giannis is a guy who we've seen his career. He's damn near 7 feet at this point. I mean, they're not going to really, have updated heights, like Kevin Durant's been 6'9" forever, but we don't know.
Kevin Durant is as tall as DeAndre Ayton on the court.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the way I see how Victor moves, compared to a guy like Porzingis, who's much more of, kind of like standstill guy when he's going for jumpers and stuff like that. I think the fluidity in his body movements really like Giannis, the way he's able to, go and get chased down blocks. That's the kind of thing I've seen. And a definite good projection would be for Victor, try and be able to bulk up. I mean, honestly, a Giannis bulk up is kind of a generational thing. You don't really see that now. Now it's pretty hard to see, because he went from a twin.
But if you could even get like 50% of what Giannis did, because Giannis was so small, and you've seen the transformation that he's had. Like, I think even 50%, like 30% of that would be tremendously helpful for someone like Victor.
Yeah. That would be great. And then diving into the player type, I think we can agree on this. He's kind of a generational two-way shot creating big, the way he's able to move around the floor. And, the two-way factor that he's just such a defensive guy. One of the things that I wanted to mention is just how great he is on defense. He's going to enter the league as one of the premier shot blockers, and he's going to continue that as long as he's healthy, because there's not many guys that can move like him and block shots like him. Sure, you see a guy like Gobert, but we've seen Gobert in the past get exposed for his inability to move around. Maybe Victor benefits from the fact that he's not, as big, has as much muscle on as these other guys to move around. But
that'll change after his rookie year. And I think what you were mentioning about his interior defense, I think his knack for blocks, and I think he just has great anticipation. Like, his anticipation, I think, is really like knowing when to jump, when to block. I think is just off the charts when you watch him play.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about his offensive game. I mean, he just has such great footwork. I mean, the game that I watched specifically, I wanted to see the USA game because I wanted to see him go against the best talent. I mean, the one of the knocks on him is that he's playing on a team with Mets 92 that is kind of centered around, him, in his development. That's why he went there. I believe their coach is kind of well-renowned. I think he might be the French international coach, which
he's on the French internet. If he's not the head coach, he's on the coaching staff. And also, I was reading an interview, like, he was going to retire as a coach, but like wanted to come back for Victor to help him help him grow as a basketball player.
And I mean, being on that staff, we've seen some of the best players in the NBA coming from France. I mean, Rudy Gobert, Tony Parker. I mean, and no knock to a guy like Evan Fournier, who's been an absolute insanity when it comes to international play.
And he's been in the league for a while. No knock against him.
Exactly. Did not come off the bench in that Knicks game I saw the other day, but nonetheless, I mean, and then let's get into like we're talking about his offensive game. He's got a really good shooting stroke for the guy his size. I mean, that USA 19 game, he was hitting step back 3-pointers. Very fluid. Not like rugged like you'd see with a guy like Bull. I mean, what do you think about his shooting and how it projects to the next level?
Yeah, no, the main word that comes to mind when I think of him is fluid. And I know, looking at his stats specifically, the 3-point shooting kind of jumps out at you as not being super great, for his team that he's currently playing with right now. He's shooting around 29%. But with what scouts look at when 3-point shooting is not great and trying to project out is free throw shooting, and he's shooting 80% still. Like, his form is super good. It's just watching the shots go in that's has kind of been an issue. But to me, that's not a big concern. Just seeing how he shoots the ball, the highlights, specifically watching his games, he has it down. The shots just aren't falling. But again, that is somewhat of a concern, but to me, it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, especially like I mentioned earlier, he's at a team where they're trying to get him as much shots and opportunities as possible. You can't,
exactly,
kind of put a label on that he's not a good shooter when he's kind of trying to just learn. He's just getting his shots up at the end of the day. So as long as, the shooting form does not seem like it's broken in any matter, hopefully no one tries to Markelle Fultz him, even though he's got a good form, to mess it up.
But totally.
We don't need to see that. But yeah, moving on. I mean, I kind of wanted to dive in some rookie year predictions. I think it's going to be really sky high. I think people think this guy is going to be rookie rookie Luka kind of standard. Which honestly, I think Victor's a great player, but I don't think he's going to translate that quickly into the NBA. I think it's going to take him about a season or two before he really starts.
Also guards seem to translate better earlier. Just like it seems to take bigs a little longer to learn the pace and speed and play style that NBA bigs play with in comparison to Luka, which I think that's a valid point you made.
Yeah. So, I mean, my predictions, go off and say what you think as well. I mean, around 17 points a game, 9 rebounds. I think he'll be amongst the top 5 in shot blockers, around 3, with the Miles Turners of the world. He's going to be an all-rookie first-team guy as long as he stays healthy, and should be a clear front-runner favorite for Rookie of the Year. And I mentioned my notes, he's going to be an instant highlight reel kind of guy, like how Porzingis was in his first season, all those put-back dunks and things like that. I mean, the NBA is going to, meat ride off this guy because he's going to be so,
They already are.
Exactly. They're already, streaming his games, putting his highlights on the official NBA account. He hasn't even, committed to the draft yet, which is crazy. And then, do you have any, contradictions to these predictions?
No, I just I think maybe 17 points a game could even be on the low end. I was looking at just a bunch of people who we consider generational prospects, like Luka. I looked at LeBron's rookie year stats. I think 20 points a game is possible for his rookie year. But definitely, I agree with you in regards to possibly struggling a little bit just with the physicality of the game. I think will be key, but I think he'll figure that out as he goes on throughout his career. So
teams that he would best fit on, let's look at the top 5 because as of right now, because he's not going to slip past that. So we got Houston, Detroit, San Antonio, Charlotte, and Orlando. Where would you want to see him most?
Probably Detroit, just because I think Cade and him would be a sick duo. But also I don't know. I that goes along with Charlotte. LaMelo and Wemby, I think would be a fun pair. But in terms of developmentally, what would probably be best for him? Maybe San Antonio. They have a history of really developing, and especially overseas guys. So really, I think he'll be successful wherever he goes. But I think probably Charlotte or Detroit would maybe not Detroit now, just because they have so many bigs. You don't want to clog up that backcourt, or front court. But yeah, I'm leaning towards Charlotte.
Yeah, at the moment, obviously, when it comes down to it, every team is going to say that Victor Wembanyama, you got to take first best player available.
No, totally.
But I think it would be hard for him on Detroit because we've seen how good Jalen Duren is. Wiseman had a good, solid debut the other day. I think Orlando would be fantastic. That would be one of the scariest teams in the league. I know they have.
That would be crazy, bro. Markelle Fultz is taking a leap this year. Paolo, Franz, bro. That would be a scary, scary team.
And I know Wendell Carter is there, but you cannot pass up on this guy because they have a lineup. And mind you, they also have Chicago's pick, who is high up as well in this lottery. So you could be able to go out there. We'll get into it later. I would love if they got a guy like Anthony Black out of Arkansas to pair with Victor Wembanyama, so a defensive heavy duo. Then you have a creator in Franz Wagner. You have a primary scorer in Paolo, and then whoever you want to roll out at the 2. Suggs more likely if he continues, to get better offensively. That could be the scary team. I think that's the best fit because it doesn't put a lot of pressure on him early on. I would say San Antonio would be concerning because I do believe that he could develop there well, but at the same time, that franchise is kind of on a downward slope, and I feel like it'd be hard because Pop's not going to coach a lot more. Having to switch coaches, and sure, they'll have a lot of draft capital going forward, after the DeJounte Murray trade, but it's going to be in a situation where they're just going to put a heavy load on him. And, that could lead to injuries, and it can also lead to ineffective shooting, which is going to, put a negative, label on him early on. The Charlotte situation, I just don't have a lot of, belief with Charlotte. They're just really been a poorly run franchise. Sure, like LaMelo, that was a steal for them. Golden State should have never passed up on a guy like him. But, now he's injured. I mean, I'm assuming he'll be back to start next season. But,
it's the Pumas.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be a nice pairing to see. That would be a Charlotte franchise saver. And then with Houston, I think if they get Wembanyama, I think there's been rumors talking about it. James Harden would perfectly be a fit to go back there because they need a guy that can facilitate, because he would struggle without a true facilitator on that team, because all there is just guys that can shoot and they play pickup basketball around there. And it would be a weird situation with Sengun, because I guess you would want to put Wembanyama at the 4 because Wembanyama can, play outside more and use, Sengun in that Jokic role. But interesting.
That was my concern, especially with how Silas has been coaching them, not really playing through Sengun when that's probably clearly the best option that they have right now. That's kind of why I didn't mention them, just because of, they don't really have a lot of playmakers right now. And if James Harden goes there, that definitely changes. But, that would be interesting. And I agree with you completely on the Orlando take. And yeah, the reason I said the Spurs and Charlotte both, because I agree with you. I think those are both franchises in decline, but I think those are both franchises just like Cleveland in 2003 that need a kickstart in a franchise player like with Victor Wembanyama. So
yeah,
it would just make them more interesting.
100%. So we'll ease off on the Victor Wembanyama for a little bit. I mean, we'll touch back on him if needed. So let's dig into the number 2 guy, Scoot Henderson. G League Ignite went that route, second year there, 6'2", 195. Let's just dive straight into him. I mean, the obvious, he's a slashing playmaker kind of guy. Who is the guy that you see the most out of him? I know there's a lot of athletic guards that people want to pin on him, but who do you see the most?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but like a Russell Westbrook, but with maybe a better potential for shooting and efficiency wise, possibly. He's just a dog. Did you see that picture of him recently, bro? Looks like a bulldog. He's buff as fuck. I just don't see him not hitting as a prospect just because of his mentality, the way he plays the game. I think he's just, like I said, I think he's a dog.
Yeah, I think D Rose. I was just watching that game versus, Victor Wembanyama, and the way that he's able to be, have a good touch in that mid-range area, the little fadeaway jumpers that he has in his game. I think that's where I really see Rose, because, Rose wasn't really such a great shooter, but he was serviceable,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's better than the Westbrook, yeah.
Yeah, you could trust him on a three-pointer. You could trust him in a mid-range. He's not your go-to guy, but he definitely could hit that shot. So, yeah, let's kind of dig into the evaluation. I mean, very, very bouncy guy. He is, crazily enough, not the most athletic player in this draft class, because that's another guy we'll get to in another episode. But, I see the John Moran in terms of how bouncy he is, but I see – the D Rose and Westbrook's more kind of the physicality, because he's a little bit bigger built. Probably more on the Russell Westbrook side in terms of the body type. I think the jump shot, he does get a little bit dissed on more than he needs to be. But then again, he's shooting 35%, not on a lot of attempts. His career high is three threes made. So he's still got to work on that. He's shooting 35% this year. But I think that, if he continues to get his playmaking, he's going to be a great guy that you can use, plug and play. And we'll just dive into it. What are the teams that you think he would best fit on?
Man, I think I think San Antonio would be a good one, maybe even better than Victor, just because they don't really have a dynamic guard like that. And I think he would fit nicely next to their wings, alongside Vassell and such. He would be a good fit in San Antonio. Also, Yeah, like San Antonio. I think San Antonio is definitely like the place he should probably go, because Detroit, Charlotte, like they all have guards. Maybe Houston, but again, that cloud hanging over that franchise that is James Harden with the reports coming out recently. Like I don't know if that's like I haven't looked that far into the Harden to Houston things. Is that like a real thing, or is that just like a rumor?
Yeah, it says that like there's true like
there's some truth to it. Okay, then like he would also be nice in Houston, but like if Harden's going there, probably San Antonio is the spot.
Yeah, I would say the only problem with Houston is just too much youth in that backcourt. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Because all you have is just guys that just like can bounce. Like that's a really bouncy backcourt with Green and Scoot. Yeah, I definitely would agree with you that San Antonio is the best spot, because it's going to be weird because there's a couple of teams that could very likely land this number 2 pick that did not make sense to take him. If you got Houston, like we said, who knows? Would they make sense to take him? Detroit has no reason to take him with Ivy and Cunningham, unless they've sold their stock in Cunningham, which I can't imagine they would do.
Yeah.
Charlotte does not make sense alongside LaMelo, especially with Rozier there. And Orlando would be interesting, but
yeah, Orlando would be cool.
It would just be if they wanted to avoid, paying, some of their other guards like Cole Anthony.
Yeah,
and such.
They would have to trade off some pieces.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you that San Antonio would be the best. Have that core going forward of Johnson, Vassell, Sohan, and Henderson. I think that'd be well, and wouldn't have a lot of attention on him, so he'd be able to develop. And if he's able to, maybe Tony Parker comes back, helps in kind of a player development role with San Antonio. I think that'd be a great guy to mentor him.
Yeah, and I could definitely see a similar trajectory in how like the culture changed around Memphis when Ja got there, with someone like Scoot going to San Antonio, which is like not necessarily a big market NBA team, and like definitely changed the trajectory of that franchise. We're not talking about Ja's off the court antics, but regardless, like yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother story. Oh my gosh.
Fucking Ja.
But no, I mean, the top performances were the games I looked at. I mean, versus, Victor Wembanyama in that matchup in Vegas, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 of 3 from 3. Looked very confident. He was very aggressive going towards the basket against Wembanyama. He was not feared. I think he was very motivated by the fact that, people are so high on him, and it kind of feels like he's been falling in the shadows. So I like seeing that. The mid-range jumper was solid. The form looks good, and I like the touch around the rim, as I mentioned earlier. And then looking at the, rookie year predictions, what do you see coming from early on? Let's say he lands with a team like San Antonio. What do you think people should expect?
I definitely agree with what you put, the 14, 6, and 4. Like I can definitely see that. Maybe not great efficiency-wise, but I don't think he'll be bad either. I think he has a nice feel for the game from what I've seen. Like I think he'll be able to be a serviceable guard from the jump with potential to be a future All-NBA player.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I could see some struggling, like shooting almost like 40 to 42 from the field, like 32 from 3, but still like developing. Like he's not going to be a guy that, especially if he gets put in a situation like San Antonio, that's going to contribute to winning early on, because he's going to need to continue to develop his game, because like as much as he's going against, some of these like G League talents, like against OKC Blue, he went against Usman Jang, a top, was he lottery?
He was a lottery pick.
Okay. He was
like 11, right?
Yeah. Something around there. And then DJ Wilson, former NBA guy as well, had like 27, 5 and 5, 4 steals. I think going against college players, which a guy later will mention, I think is a better way to see, which is, I think the biggest knock on these two guys is we haven't really seen them play against, elite talent consistently, because, Wembanyama's had that game against Scoot and the G League guys, because there's a couple other guys on that G League Ignite team that are going to get looks in the first round. I was doing some research, like Leonard Miller, he's a forward on their teams, averaging like 16 and 9. He's a likely, potential late lottery guy. In City Sikoko, I don't know how to pronounce that name right. He's also a potential late first round guy as well. But it's hard because I don't think we've ever seen a draft where the top two guys have been non-college. It's kind of a changing of the guards in terms of how college will go, which will be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, one of the big prospects, Bronny, in terms of name value, will likely end up going to college. But like for when it comes down to, like Carlos Boozer's twins, very great players. Who knows if they'll end up, going the college route with the way things are looking.
Yeah, it feels like the mindset that these players has shifted towards like G League or overseas rather than college, getting them better looks towards the NBA.
Yeah. So I think we already got that hammered on Scoot. So should be a good contender. I think if he doesn't go two, he doesn't fall out of the top three, in my opinion.
I think the only reason he wouldn't go two is just fit. Like if it would be like a team that already has like an established young potential superstar point guard, I think they would miss wouldn't take Scoot, but like definitely the second best player in this draft.
I think the only person that could give him a run for his money besides our number 3 guy would be Amen Thompson from OTE. I think if he performs well against
I really like him. I
think that because he's got bigger size than him.
Bro, he's 6'7". He's huge. He's a big guard.
He is, I alluded to earlier, he's the best athlete in this class.
Yes, without a doubt.
Because people say Scoot's got a jump shot issue. That is nothing compared to what Amen Thompson has.
What people think Scoot's jumper is Amen's. Like, it's not good, but, like, he can jump out of the fucking gym.
Yeah, and he's going to be like an elite defender from day one. So that's the one guy I think, because OTEs doesn't really have much credit at this point because they haven't developed a real NBA talent. But the Thompson twins will likely be the first two off that list.
They'll both be lotto picks. Like, they both, will – for sure.
So we'll get into the man himself, Mr. TSA pat down, Brandon Miller. It's crazy this what's going on with this Alabama team, but they're still going to likely be a number 1 seed going in this March Madness. First college guy on this list. He's 6'9". Like the number 1 player as well in this class. Not really big in terms of his frame. He's only 200 pounds. I mean, sure. In terms of proportion, he's bigger than Wembanyama with the weight, the height, but still, he's much of a twig when it comes to a 6'9" guy. What are your thoughts on him, and what are some players that you see?
I really like him right now. Like the 3-and-D, especially barring whatever happened with that whole gun situation. The game right after that, scoring 41 points, showed me he can even though this is not the best adversity, he can handle adversity. I've seen a lot that I like from him. And to me, I wouldn't call this a 1-to-1 player comp because I think there are better player comps out there, but a Jabari Smith from last year with a handle. I think he's super solid. I really like him.
Yeah. I mean, I went with Brandon Ingram's kind of my key guy that I see when I think of Brandon Miller, just the way that, in terms of his frame and that he's still able to, finish around the basket. I think Brandon Miller's got a far better shooting touch than him at this stage of his career.
Yeah.
The player type that I went for is a 3-level scorer. And I feel like in terms of draft range, top 5, some of the takeaways that I had, I watched not one of his top performances. I watched his game against Arkansas because despite them not being they're a middle of the pack defensive team, but they're a team that's got a lot of great, player, individual defenders with Anthony Black, Jared Walsh, so on and so forth. He's definitely a better attacker than people give him credit for, from what I can see. He's not an elite finisher, but he can definitely get to the rim and, draw contact. It's just a matter of, can he get to the line from that contact? I think he does need to improve on that lower body strength, though. When he's, jumping and, attacking the rim against, these bigger guys. But I think one of the things you got to look at is he is by far the best player on this Alabama team. So when he's going against these teams, in the SEC, like these Arkansas, their main focus is shutting down Brandon Miller. And when you're going into the NBA, early on, teams aren't going to say, let's shut down that rookie Brandon Miller. That's not going to be their main focus. If he goes to a team, I think Detroit would be perfect for him. We're able to not be, not come in as having to be a number 1 guy for this team, and where he's gonna be able to get a lot of open looks. Because in that Arkansas game, a lot of the 3-point shot attempts he was getting were coming off screens and, off the dribble, which, hasn't shown an ability to be great at that. But I think, if he's able to, have a lot more, as the NBA spacing is obviously a lot better than in college, especially with how big the court is. I think that will help him a lot. But what are your takeaways with him so far?
Yeah, definitely. Just expand. The Jabari Smith comp that I had is not like the one that I love the most, because I was looking around at people's what people were saying, like the draft consensus was on what he has shades of, and people were saying Paul George, and I was like, I don't really see it athleticism wise.
Yeah,
but I went back and looked at his Fresno State tape, and I was like, I definitely see it where the jumper is a little unorthodox, but it goes in. Like, I can definitely see it from that perspective. And yeah, I just a great scorer, has tremendous length. I really see him translating to the NBA perfectly. He's just such a great player for the modern NBA. I totally see where the hype is at with him.
And he's a great rebounder for his frame. He's averaging about 8 a game, and he gets up there with his frame, long arms. He's able to grab those rebounds, and that's been a good thing to see. The one knock on him is he had that good South Carolina game, but outside of Gigi Jackson, that team isn't really talented. And he hasn't performed really great when facing, these top comparable NBA talents. He went against Gonzaga. He had a good game, but it was in a loss. I mean, sure, Alabama, they're a number one team, but without Brandon Miller, they'd probably be a lot, farther down the rankings, going against Julian Strother, a likely draft pick, as well as Drew Timme, one of the top college players, 36, 6'11" from three. This is a guy who's going to early on, be a really good 3-point shooter, like how Jayson Tatum was in his rookie season, came out, shooting 40% from three. And kind of diving into the rookie year predictions, I think he's going to be a leading scorer from this class. That's what my take is, over a guy like Victor Wembanyama, because I think that his fit will be, I think whatever teams that he falls to, I believe the team that will take him will be a good fit to slot him in. I think teams aren't going to, take him as best player available. I think they're going to take him based on fit because of how this draft goes after number 2. But I think he's going to shoot around 40% from three, and I think he's going to have a better season than Scoot. And I think he's going to be the runner-up for Rookie of the Year. But I'm hoping he ends up with Detroit. That's kind of my favorite destination for him. What about you?
Yeah, no, I completely agree on Detroit. And I think, 40% is definitely possible. He's shooting 46% from three right now at Alabama. He's a great shot maker. And definitely Detroit would be I think definitely the ideal spot for him. But also someone like Charlotte, I think would also not be bad. I think Brandon Miller is such a plug and play player. He could fit on any NBA team. He's just such he's a shot maker. He can do it all.
Yeah. Do you think he projects better as a 3 or a 4? I mean, I know positions aren't going to matter too much in a couple of years, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think rookie year, probably 3, but once he builds up his frame a little more, he could definitely play the 4.
Okay. So kind of not trying to say he's going to be anything near that, but how Kevin Durant's transitioned in a way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he just has to put on some more weight, I think, if he's going to play the 4 consistently. I bet during his rookie year he'll play some 4, but if he wants to have consistent minutes or even start at the 4, I think he'll probably have to put on some more weight.
Yeah, and my other one was I think Charlotte would be a great fit, a team that doesn't have a lot of great 3-point shooting, and I think would be a great guy for Melo to drive and dish to. And we forgot to mention this earlier. Mark Williams has actually been pretty solid for the Hornets.
Mark Williams is a dog. I really like him.
That would be great to have. You could even because you could put Brandon Miller at the 4 with Charlotte because you'd have such a strong rebounder down low with Williams. Gives a lot of additional flexibility. Anything else you want to mention on Miller?
No, maybe some character issues, but we'll see.
So, I mean, before we wrap this up, like, are there any things you also want to mention about Scooter Wemby, or is there any other players that you're excited to evaluate going forward?
I'm really excited to talk about the Thompson twins, especially with the OTE angle, seeing how they transition to the NBA, like seeing how the competition that they faced fares to NBA play. I'm really excited. I really like Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. He's a really good player. I've loved what I've seen from his tape so far. Yeah, I'm just excited. This draft, I think, is the deepest we've had in a while. Maybe the 2021 class is pretty deep, but also like this class, I think, has potential to be super great. And especially with the two upcoming classes seemingly being not super great, like this is going to be one to pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll see which range we go through next. I mean, we did 1 through 3. Maybe we'll do 4 through 7, something like that.
Yeah.
But Anthony Black is another guy that I'm really high on. I mean, from what I've seen, like he's got that tall guard playmaking vibes, reminiscent of a guy like Josh Giddey, Tyrese Halliburton, DeJounte Murray. When I was watching tapes from their college, I was seeing things really similar to Black. A 6'7", 200-pound guard, very good defensively. Has some jump shot concerns, which seems to be a big thing with the guards in this draft. Interesting enough, but go ahead.
I just want to throw in one more player that I liked that I forgot to mention. Kind of in the Jalen Williams from last year out of Santa Clara, Maxwell Lewis out of Pepperdine. Watch him; he's going to be tough. I really like him. I love the guards that come out of the non D1 schools. I think they have some. They always have some dog in them.
Yeah, exactly. I know, especially like guys like Black. Like Amen Thompson, with this new age NBA potentially going positionless, to be able to have that size, to play multiple positions and guard multiple positions, I think it's going to be extremely valuable.
Yeah, this class definitely has a lot of like positionless players. Definitely.
Yeah, I think a guy like, obviously we'll say it for the video, but a guy like Anthony Black, I would love to see him fall to a team like Toronto. If they decide to move on from Van Vliet, like that fits the whole scheme with guys like, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, all that stuff, just switchable defenders. That
totally.
So there's definitely some more guys we got to get into. I mean, we got March Madness coming up, so that's going to be, really telling for a lot of these prospects. I think all eyes are going to be at a guy like Jarris Walker, for example, looking to help lead Houston to the promised land. People I've seen like Julius Randle's been a comp for him. Obviously, Randle's, had a long development period in terms of the player that he's now today, now the All-Star he is today. But, look at Paulo Banchero, for example, kind of earned his draft stock from that tournament. So it's interesting to see. Are there any other guys looking forward towards how they're going to play in terms of their development?
Definitely Jarris Walker. Like, I'm excited to see from him in the tournament. I don't know. He's just the one that I haven't done that deep of a dive on that I'm excited to see if his draft stock will rise, because in the mock draft, seemingly throughout the year, he's risen a lot. So I'm excited to see him.
And I'm excited to see the Kansas wings as well. Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson. Jalen Wilson could very well become that OG Anunoby guy, obviously basic comp, but an upperclassman wing that can end up, sliding into the late lottery potentially. So a lot of other guys look at. We'll have to do a dive on some teams. Like Kentucky's got some interesting guys there. Cason Wallace. A lot of interesting team. You got guys that aren't even going to be playing in the tournament, and then obviously these guys that aren't even playing in college in general. So interesting to see. So we appreciate you guys for listening. We'll be dropping some graphics to go with this, and make sure to drop some love and support. We got some stuff coming out coast to coast, some new interesting things going on in the future. So hope you guys all stay along, and peace.
Go Suns.